week, many pro sports franchises have responded to the killing of George Floyd and the broader issue of race in this country. Some, however, have not, raising the question of what role these businesses should play at a time like this. Bill Rhoden is writer-at-large for the Undefeated, the author of the book $40 Million Slaves, The Rise, Fall, and Redemption of the Black Athlete. Also tonight back with us is Dr. Americus Reed from the Wharton School. Gentlemen, it's so good to have you.
Thank you. Great seeing you.
Bill, I'll begin with you. I'm a longtime reader and big fan of your work, so it's a pleasure to have you on our program tonight. My question would be that the majority of teams, as I said, have released a statement or at least said something publicly. Some, however, have not. And I'm wondering what you think the role of sports should be and these businesses should be in our society today on issues like we're dealing with now, and whether every team has an obligation to say or do something.
Yeah, you know, I don't care whether they release a statement or not. I mean, I'm personally beyond the point of words now. And let me just say this. I'm so happy. I'm really so happy now that we don't have games. You know, we don't have NBA playoffs. We don't have Major League Baseball, you know, because we need to do exactly what we're doing as a nation. We need to really focus now. Focus is probably we've never had before. A lot of people who probably never thought twice about racism. And by the way, that's our problem. Racism, the problem is racism. But I think that what we're seeing now without sports to divert our attention is sort of the raw, cold brutality of racism, privilege, inequality. And it's not just here, it's globally. So I don't really care who says something, what teams don't, what teams do. They're going to have to answer because most of those franchises run on the bodies of young black men, and they're going to have to answer to them.
It's speaking of that, and Dr. Reed, that's where I want to turn to you. I bring up the example of the owner of the New York Knicks, Jim Dolan, who put out a statement as to why they weren't going to put out a statement. And some other teams have punted on the issue as well. I spoke with another NBA owner today who told me, frankly, my players want to hear from me at a time like this. They want to have a dialogue on how we can make substantive changes so that we can fix the issue that we're talking about. What do you make of the teams that haven't said or haven't done, and the example that I read to you tonight of MSG and Mr. Dolan?
Yeah, it's a great point. I am extremely disappointed in the statement by Mr. Dolan. I think punting away the ball and basically saying that we're not really qualified to talk about giving an opinion about a tragedy that's going on in the black community right now is one of the most egregious kinds of statements, wishy-washy, very unproductive statement you could ever imagine, especially tying it in back to what Bill said about the fact that your entire business model is built on these African-American athletes, or a large portion of them being on your team and coming from these impoverished environments. So to say that we're not qualified to speak on this is a slap in the face. It's an insult and a massive mistake. And so what I would say is I agree with Bill. The talking should be over, but there should be some talking as a bridge to say, hey, you know what? We need to be sick of this. We need to actually start making movement change, tangible, concrete kinds of things. And we can't sit on the sidelines, so to speak, to use a sports pun. We have to take a stance, and we have to be very clear and unambiguous about what that stance is.
Yeah. And you know, just Dolan is a huge supporter. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, Dolan is a huge supporter of the president. So, I'm not surprised at. Then, on the other hand, you know, Dolan has his top executives in his corporation for a long time were African American. So he's got this, and that's what racism is, this sort of undefined duality where you could be racist over here, but yet as you got a black business model, and some of your top executives are African American. But I just think that, you know, I was listening to the program, and I think that what we face is much larger than the owners. We're facing this despiritualization in our country. Why is it that the markets are roaring, right? The markets are roaring in the midst of this horrible sea of misery, of unbelievable unemployment, of unbelievable deaths. But yet the market is roaring. I just think that that has become the major problem in our country, is that money has become the highest value. And I think that's what we have to grapple with. We have to find our soul. We have to find this American soul. So I think, I mean, it's a lot to say in the 2 minutes, but we have some big moral issues to wrestle with.
Believe me, we're tackling the issue of this disconnect between Wall Street and what you would say the real world perhaps is on an everyday basis. And I should also note, Dr. Reed, that there are owners who are stepping up and stepping out. David Tepper, for example, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, they're the second franchise in the NFL to release a statement only after the Minnesota Vikings did. And it's my understanding that he met with the Players' Impact Committee, or at least they were consulted for certain in the way that their statement was put out. So there was a sort of collective nature in all this. I'm also wondering, Dr. Reed, how you think organizations themselves will view now their players taking a stand on social issues and taking a more activist role. And whereas some organizations criticized or were uncomfortable with players kneeling, for example, during the national anthem in the NFL, may take a different road because of the events we're all witnessing today.
I agree 100%, Scott. I think the New World Order, as I'm calling it, is telling us now, dictating to us that, you know, we can't sit on the sidelines. We can no longer be silent. We have to participate in the solution. And I think smart owners, I mean, they're billionaires, but I think smart owners, and they're not going to criticize their colleagues, but they understand the mistake of not making a strong enough statement, especially with the talent that's in the locker room that's providing all of the value, if you will, to these teams. And so they understand that we live in a world now where each of these individual players, Scott, are brands themselves. I'm a marketing guy. So they're on social media. So if the owners think they can stop these individual players from taking a stand and getting involved in these social issues, they are misguided. It's going to happen anyway. And so the question is, are you going to strategically create a groundswell or an opportunity to bring the players in and help you co-create the change that's possible here? And the smart owners are going to do that. They're going to create the community. They're going to create their team, their human talent to be part of the solution and not try to get them to be silent or try to be very wishy-washy with respect to taking a stance on these issues.
Also, and lastly, Bill, I wonder about the athletes themselves, the employees, if you will, of these businesses. When the employees speak up in businesses that we cover here at CNBC every day, we cover those stories. They're celebrated voices for speaking out. And I'm wondering if the next time a LeBron James or somebody else of stature in sports stands up and says something, they're not told to shut up and dribble. Their opinions are more meaningful than maybe they've ever been before.
Yeah, they've got a lot of power. It kind of gets back to the notion of $40 million slaves. Just because you have money doesn't mean you have power. You know, I just want to talk about that, but in the context of the hypocrisy of the owners. They can say anything, but they blackball Colin Kaepernick still. And frankly, when it's time for them to hire black people as their head coaches, the league looks like a virtual plantation with all the black guys working and all the white guys from that point up, being the brain trust. So, like I said, we're beyond talking. It's deeds, not work. Hire these black guys as your head coaches. Hire them as vice presidents. Hire them as executives. I don't want to hear what you have to say. Yeah, I don't want to hear words. It's deeds, not words.